Hello and welcome along to After Effects Basics with your host Robert Smith. In these couple of videos we're going to look at animating a logo in the 3D world in After Effects. I like to call it 2.5D world. It's not true 3D. So let's start. We're going to start off in Illustrator, so I'm going to Command Tab over to Illustrator like this, and here's a logo. It's got 5 elements. It's got 2 of these rectangles, a couple of lines of type and a border around the outside. If you have a look at up here in the layers, you'll notice that I've done the right thing. I've named all my layers, and every one of those is on a separate layer, and that's really, really important that you construct your Illustrator file this way. Okay, you're probably wondering where the checkered background came from if you're new to Illustrator. That's because I used a video preset when I made this page 1280 by 720 pixels in Illustrator. Now, if you don't like that, you can go to View and hide transparency grid like that, but the trouble is I've got some white type, so it's much more effective if I go to View, Show Transparency Grid like that. Okay, so that's my Illustrator file, and as this is not an Illustrator series of videos, let's get straight into animating this. So if I Command Tab back to After Effects like that, here I am in After Effects. I'm going to File, Import that Illustrator file like this. There it is. Now I know it's a layered Illustrator file, like a layered Photoshop file, so I'm going to make it Composition Retain Layer Sizes like that, and open, and then it comes. If you have a look at it now, there's my layers, and if I double click on this comp, there's my comp like that. Let's go back to one view for a minute, and as you can see, there it is looking in all its glory. Okay, I also need to bring in a background, which we're going to use. So I'm going to go to File, Import File, and here's a background. It's only a flattened JPEG, so no issues there. Okay, let's have a look at what we've got. We've got a background, we've got a comp, and we've got some layers. Now this comp itself, this one we're working, this digit guy comp, it's too long. It's 30 seconds long because that's what the last comp was that I was working on. So I'm going to go to Composition Settings, and in here in Duration, I'm just going to type in 1000. That'll give me 10 seconds. So now my timeline's only 10 seconds long, and that's exactly what I want. Okay, I'm going to grab my background now and drag it down to be the background layer like that. I think that's a shot I took on my iPhone at a wedding. That was the decoration on the table. So you never know when you'll find a good image for a background or a texture like that. Now, one thing to notice about this, if I zoom out, it's huge, and we'll see why in a minute, because we're working in the 3D world. Okay, now to work in the 3D world in After Effects, you have to convert each layer to a 3D layer. Now to do that, you'll see you've got a little cube thing here, and if you don't have that, click on your toggle switches like this down here till you see that cube, and then simply click and drag down like that. Now nothing much has changed. All we have now is we'll have some more properties to play with in the 3D world. Okay, now when we work in the 3D world, it's important that we have a couple of views of what we're looking at. Right now we're looking at what's called a default camera. Just imagine you're a camera sitting here looking straight at this design like that. So over here you'll see under one view, just here, I'm going to change that to 2 views horizontal like that. So now again we can just, on this side we can see what's happening there. That's the active camera, we're looking straight at it, and on the left hand side we're looking straight down on it like a bird's eye view. It's exactly the same scene, we're just simply looking at it from a different angle. And this comes in really handy, because what we need to do is we need to move this background. Right now, if I was to select all of these here, you'll see that all of these things are exactly in the same what's called Z space. They're sitting right on top of each other. So I need to separate the background from the logo, or actually give it a bit of space between the two of them, and you'll see why in a minute. So to do that, I'm going to go to my background layer like that. I'm going to press P for position like this. Now what's the left hand side here? What happens? Now here we've got 3 numbers now. Because it's a 3D layer, we've got 3 numbers. We've got X and Y, which we normally have on every other thing we use in After Effects. But now we've got a 3rd number here. And this third number is called the Z position. And what that simply means is how close it is to you or how far away it is from you. And it can be a little bit confusing at first. Very easy to confuse with the scale property. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that number there. I'm going to start to drag like that. Now, as you can see on the left-hand side, the background, you can see it on the right-hand side too, that it's moving away from the camera like that. I'm just going to actually double-click on it and just type in 1000 because I know that's the number I want. And as you can see, nothing's really changed in this, what the camera's seeing. It looks much the same. But what has happened is that if you look on the left-hand side, this background now is a long way away from this logo, and this will be very important once we start to apply lights and shadows and things like that to it. Okay, very nice indeed. So now that's looking good. I'm going to, once I've done that, I'm going to get back to one view so I can see more of what's happening. Okay, I'm back at one view by just clicking there. Now I need to animate this logo, and I'm just simply going to rotate them in space like this. Now they're 3D layers. I can rotate them in a 3D aspect. So how do I do that? Let me just show you. Now you've probably realized at this point that After Effects takes up lots and lots of real estate, especially this timeline down here like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use the time. Let me show you a little trick. I'm just going to select the top layer all the way down to the word digit guy, but not the background layer. In fact, I think I might even lock that background layer so it doesn't get in the way. Okay, so I've got those 5 layers selected like this. I'm going to press the letter R for rotation. Now you'll notice we now have a thing called X rotation, Y rotation, and Z rotation, which is you don't have those in the 2D world. And as you can see, all of my properties have gone right off the bottom of the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little trick. I'm going to click on the timeline anywhere like that. I'll actually make sure I select them, Apple A like that. I'm going to press the tilde key. Now the tilde key is the one under the escape, right in the top left-hand corner of your keyboard. And you'll notice now all I've got is the timeline. Because I clicked on that window, it just fills the whole screen. You can't see anything else, but this comes in quite handy when you've got lots of properties to play with. Okay, now I've got my 5 layers selected like that. I'm going to simply click on what's called the Y rotation like that. I'll put a keyframe. You notice I put a keyframe at the start of each of those layers like that. And I'm going to go to the end, 10-second point in my timeline, and I'm going to just give each of these different rotations. Now the orange right is the little logo, so I'm just going to give that, this first number here, I'm going to give that 2 rotations. So it's going to rotate twice in 3D space. Now this one next down, the orange left, I'm going to make that -2 like that, rotations. Now the border, I'm going to make that rotate twice, just not minus, with a positive number. The word design, I'm going to give that a Y rotation of 2. And the word digit guy, I'll click on the first number of the Y rotation and give it a -2. Okay, now we can't see what's happened, so to get out of this viewing space, just press the tilde again by itself, and we're back into our timeline. Let's play that and see what we've got. Now, as you can see, we're normally in the 2D world just rotating things across the X and Y axis, but here we're actually using what After Effects calls the 3D space. You notice they're sort of spinning away from you and towards you, which is something the 3D world is good for. Okay, so that's the first bit. We've created our Illustrator file, we've brought it into After Effects, and we've done a very simple animation on the Y rotation, just like that. Okay, see you in the next video.